want to talk about today are 5 tips for better food photos on Instagram, because I get this question a lot, or I get the comment a lot that people love my food photos and they wonder if they're from a quote unquote real camera or a DSLR, or if they're from my iPhone. And the truth is most of them are from my iPhone. The only pictures that you'll see on my Instagram that are not from my iPhone are more official photos. So photos that you might see on my blog for a recipe, for example, or a photo that might be from one of my books is obviously not going to have been shot with an iPhone. So I've got 5 tips for you guys today for better food photos on Instagram, and they actually start way before the photo. So the number 1 tip that I have, or the first thing that you need to think about when you want your food photo to come out nice, is to chop carefully. So if you're chopping ingredients, you're slicing things, you're dicing things, you are getting your food ready to be cooked. I mean, obviously if it's going to be raw like a salad, this is also something to consider, but if you're chopping and dicing things and the way that you cut things is messy and uneven and doesn't look good, the end result is not going to look any better. So if your dice is uneven and you want that to look really pretty in the end, you have to really pay attention when you start cutting in the first place. So that's one of the first tips that I have, is that, be neat about how you're preparing the food, and that will come with time. The second tip, and this is one that might not seem that obvious to you, but it'll become apparent the more you're used to it, is to choose a plate or a bowl that isn't too big. You want the food to really fill the vessel that it's in. Sometimes you actually even want it to sort of overfill that vessel. So if we go to plate food as a food stylist or a photographer, we tend to use like a salad plate instead of a dinner plate. Obviously, if you're eating a huge meal and you have it filling up that dinner plate, cool. But most of the time we'll choose a smaller vessel and let the food look more abundant. That really is what makes the food look exciting and like you really want to get in there and eat the food. Tip number 3 is garnish. Okay, so this is especially true if you've got a lot of white food or brown food or like something that's just one color. Chopping up some cilantro or parsley or chives or any kind of herb, any kind of zest, anything that you can put on top to just sprinkle it, even a little bit of hot sauce, that little splash of red can be really helpful, some kind of sauce, anything that you're going to use to break up a single color and add a pop of color. So this is where, for example, in tacos, I like the crunch of fresh red cabbage, but even more than the crunch, I like the visual pop that it adds, not only for the photo, but for myself before I eat it. So garnish is really important. It's what takes a photo from being okay to looking like that much more exciting or just a little bit more thoughtful. Number 4, and this is one of the most, they're all really important, but this is probably one of the most important, and the thing that you can do even if you're not preparing the food itself, it's to use natural light only, and a lot of it. And then I say that with the caveat of mostly natural light. There's always an exception to every rule. But if you're wondering how to get the absolute best photos of your food, do not shoot them in the dark. Do not shoot them at dinner time when you have all the lights on in your kitchen. Your overhead lights in the kitchen are not going to give you any kind of great looking light on your food. It's also going to cast shadows everywhere. So your light's coming from overhead and you're generally going to be blocking some of that light from somewhere. So that is never going to be your absolute best light. You want to use natural light only. And then I have the caveat sort of mostly. So right now I have this light that I use a lot of times for videos. That's called a ring light. It's a really bright light. And I've noticed that if I want to take a picture of food at night, it's a very white, bright light, and I can shine it down on the food and I don't get any like harsh shadows or any of that. The color fill is really great. It's just a bright, even light. It's not too yellow, and I can use that for a food photo. Now, it's not going to look as great as it would if it were natural light. One of the things that happens with natural light is that you get direction from the light, and that's just like a whole other topic for food photography. What happens with this artificial light is that you kind of get a flatter photo. It's less realistic because it's an artificial light, obviously, but it works. So if you have a really bright, some kind of light that you can shine on something, your phone is not going to do it. The flash is not really going to do it. The flash can be okay sometimes, but this is like a standing, independent, separate kind of light that you can shine right on the food and have it very, very bright. And then the 5th tip is get good at filtering. Get good at filtering. I filter almost every single photo. I don't filter it to look unnatural. I don't like for food to look colors that it isn't or shouldn't be. I like for food to look the best that it can look, you know, putting your food's best foot forward, basically. So I adjust things like the brightness and the saturation, and I adjust things like the color balance and how warm or cool the color of the photo is. Just play with it. See what every setting does up and down, you know? Like when you go to the eye doctor, you know, you get the exam and he's like, is this better or worse? Better or worse? Like literally that's what I do in the filters. Like, does this make it better or worse? Going this way, does it make it better or worse? More like I want it to look or less? And just consistently, but you know, after a while you realize, okay, if I take this photo, like here are the few things that I'm probably going to want to adjust on it. I tend to not use a preset filter. I tend to use the manual adjustments that Instagram offers or any other app may offer. I don't tend to use something like a preset filter because most of those don't make food look realistic. So I would shy away from those for the most part. That's it. Those are the 5 tips I have for you guys. Chop carefully, choose a plate or vessel that isn't too big, garnish, 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 use natural light only, mostly, and filter the photo to make it look its absolute best. I'll catch you next time. Thanks for being here.